Hi, everybody.
Hello, I'm Ryan.
I'm Bethany.
We're Ryan and Bethany Board Game Reviews.
And today we're talking about Point City. This is designed by Molly Johnson, Robert Melvin, and Sean Stankiewicz, and it is published by AEG.
The whole city made of nothing but points.
Nothing but points.
Victory points, building the whole town.
Yeah, and civic centers.
Yes, exactly. So we were huge fans of Point Salad, and Point Salad was, I don't know, universally fun. Everybody we showed it to loved it. We took it
Bought
with us.
it.
Yeah, we took it with us everywhere. This is when we took coffee dates with us. We kept it in the bag that we bring to game nights. What a great game. And it's still, we still get a lot of plays out of it. So we heard that Point City was coming out, and this is kind of, I wouldn't call it a sequel per se, but almost like a spiritual successor of it, of Point Salad. We were very interested in this one. It's kind of got some more advanced, graduated rules to it. So yeah, let me give you a quick overview of how to play. All right, here's our starting setup for Point City. Basically, we have a 4x4 grid, and everything is going to start off on its resource side. These cards are double-sided. One side is going to have a resource, one side is going to have a building. We're going to start it off with all resources so we can gather some at the beginning of the game. On your turn, what you're going to do is you're going to grab two cards, and they have to be adjacent to each other orthogonally. So for instance, we could grab these two, or we could grab these two, anything like that. You cannot grab diagonally, and you cannot grab things that are separated across the board. We also start off with a wild card over here. This kind of acts as any resource we need it to. So let's go ahead and start off by grabbing a couple of these cards. So we have to remember what they were. These were both resources when we grabbed them. We're going to put those into our supply. But when we refill the board, we have to do the opposite of what they were before. So in this case, since they were resources, we're going to fill the board with building cards. Here at the beginning, when everything is resources, it's easy to remember what you had, but these little tokens are here to remind you of when you're taking from the board, what was a resource and what was a building, so that when you replenish the board, you replenish with the correct items. The deck is kind of also divided into three groups: the kind of starting cards, the medium tier, and then kind of the end game cards. At the beginning of the game, you're going to be mostly focused on resources, so a lot of the cards give you resources. So this says you have to pay these particular resources, but what it's going to give you is it's going to give you a purple community resource for the rest of the game. So once you build that, it's going to go out in front of you, and every time you need to pay a purple resource, it's going to be there for you every time. Some are also going to give you points at the same time, but they're going to be a little bit more expensive. This costs 3 resources, but it's going to give you some points in addition to that orange resource. Some of these are going to give you a community or a civic building. Once you've built a civic building, what you're going to do is you're going to be able to grab one of these tokens. These tokens are also end-game points, and they do a variety of things. This particular one says, at the end of the game, you're going to get 3 points for a resource type that you have 3 or more of. And this is referring to the ones that you have permanently down, not the ones that you have temporarily purchased. All right, so then you have something like this. You have a whole set. If you have one of each symbol, you're going to get 6 points for every set you have. Or maybe if you don't have a certain type, 4 points per missing type. Say you have no yellows at the end of the game. You get 4 points for that. This says for every 2 points for every wild card you still have at the end of the game that you have not spent. Or maybe 3 points for a certain kind of resource set. Or maybe just an individual resource by itself. So it says 2 points for every green resource that you have permanently held at the end of the game. So at the end of the game, really the points are going to be the points that are on the cards that you've accumulated, plus the resource tokens multiplied by how many of those things that you've purchased. As the game goes on, we're going to keep on drafting cards, where we have to draft 2 adjacently. We drafted a building and a resource. So this one will become a resource, and this one will become a building. You have to be able to pay the full amount, but you can also draw off the top of the deck. If there's ever a situation where you want to draw some cards, but you don't have exactly what you need over here, if the top of the deck has it, you can draw the top 2 cards off the deck instead and use them as resources. The further down the deck you go, you're going to run into some more advanced buildings. They're going to cost a little more, but they're going to give you some points in addition to resources, or maybe more expensive versions of the civic buildings. But also, all these are going to give you double resources as you get to the middle part of the game. And then later on, you're going to get a lot higher point cards. This one costs 7 points, but it costs a lot of resources to get it. You're also going to see a lot more of the wild cards in that third and final age, along with the double resources. So the deck gets increasingly more expensive, but also more rewarding as the game goes on. The game is going to end once players have had an equal number of turns and the entire deck has run out, and you can no longer populate the board. At that point, you're going to count up all the points that you've earned, and whoever has the most points wins the game.
We've played a lot of games that have some type of tracker token that you can use, and we almost never use them because we can just remember. Most people can. That's not the case in this game. Like maybe the first couple of rounds because it's all just the resources in the beginning. But as the game progresses, they have those tracker tokens for a reason, and you definitely want to use them. I remember the first time we played, we're like, we don't need these, and we're like, was that a resource? Was that a resource they're building? Because I know I took one of each, but now I don't remember where it was, and it really matters. So this is one of the very few games that little extra tool that they give you, use it. use that little extra tool or you're going to totally mess up the game. Well, you won't totally mess it up, but you will not be playing it correctly.
I mentioned point salad earlier. This, really, when it comes down to it, has very little to do with point salad. There's a kind of a tableau of cards of sorts, but you draft them very differently. What you do when you get them is different, and the scoring is a little different. The only way the scoring is really related is those when you build a civic building and you get those tokens. Those tokens kind of remind me of some of the scoring cards from point salad. It's kind of like a set collection kind of a thing. But most of your points are really going to come from buildings that require, a recipe of style. It kind of has a splendor style resource gathering where you take a card and then it can act as a future kind of permanent resource. So it has, you can kind of see a little bit of that DNA of point salad woven through there, but at the same time they are very different. So if you're worried about why would I get point city? I've already got point salad. They are pretty much different.
Yeah, I thought the drafting was really neat because you could only go orthogonally, and sometimes there's a card you want, but you can't afford to get one of the other cards. Like, you really want this one, and you can get this one, but you can't get the other one. So you're trying to manipulate the board to give you access to this one, even though it's very difficult. So I liked that limitation that it put on me, because it made me have to be very creative in how I was drafting. I couldn't just willy-nilly draft. I had to strategically draft to hopefully change the board by the time it came back to me to where I can get the card that I actually want. So I thought that was really... I liked the limitation that they put on me.
There are three kind of decks that you stack up at the beginning of the game. The late game deck, then the mid game deck, and then the starting cards, essentially. And so that adds to the game this really nice kind of pacing, It starts off small, it's all resources, and then as it goes on, starts buildings start getting flipped over, and they're kind of either easy to achieve style of buildings, and they're lower points, but they give you some of those starting permanent resources that you can gather and keep on kind of building from there. And then into the mid-tier deck, it gets a little bit more ramped up, you get some double resources, more wilds show up, and then the late game deck, everything's just kind of all bets are off.
Yeah.
Really big buildings with a lot of points, tons of resources if you need them. It's still at that point, it's all there. So the kind of the pacing as you go through that deck really kind of ramps up nicely, and it keeps that snappy gameplay that we appreciated about Point City or Point Salad.
Overall, I am really interested to see what this design team does next. So there's a game I really like, Three Sisters, and it's the same design team that did Three Sisters and Fleet and Motor City, and it's just all this rolling dice. It's this dice drafting game of how you want to do that, or this roll and write, and it's like... It's really cool how they take the same thing and they do all these different things with it. And now this design team is doing the same thing. They take double-sided drafting cards, and then they did Point Salad, and now they did Point City, and they're not the same game at all, even though they use that exact same mechanism. So I'm just really curious to see what else they're able to do with these double-sided drafted cards. I'm watching. I'm going to see if there's anything else coming out, because I'm curious. I think you're doing a great job, and I want to see what else you can do with that mechanism.
I agree. I think if you are someone and you and your play group really enjoyed Point Salad and you want something that's got a little bit more depth, a little bit more complexity, but still has some of that familiarity as well, I think Point City is a great choice. It's got that same kind of a small box size, fast gameplay, doesn't take up your whole evening. You can start the evening with it or end the evening with it. You're going to have a great time and stuff, some great choices in the middle of it. So, I like Point City.
Everybody, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe so you can see our videos as they come out. Until then, you can find us in all of these places.
You guys, thanks for watching, and we will see you next time.
Bye.
You guys, thanks so much for watching. This game was provided to us by a publisher in exchange for a fair and honest review.
And if you want to see more stuff, check out over here to see something we think you might like.
And over here, we think that YouTube has picked out a great video for you you're going to love. Thanks, guys. We'll see you next time.
Bye.